I'm Ryan Hopper. With Election Day upon us, we turn our focus to the race shaping up for the Democratic nomination for Texas's U.S. Senate seat. State Representative James Talarico and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett have crisscrossed Texas, making their cases directly to voters on everything from the economy and immigration to how Democrats can flip this seat in November. Crockett currently holds a narrow lead in recent Democratic primary polls, while Talarico is touting his broad outreach strategy and grassroots energy. We sat down with both candidates when they visited the Coastal Bend to hear how they'd unite the party and compete in this pivotal race. So I'm here with Representative Jasmine Crockett of the DFW area. First of all, welcome to South Texas.
Thank you so much.
So I guess, it's a primary season coming up. And so the obvious question is, what differentiates you from your opponent, and why could you be the first Democrat to flip this state blue since, I believe, Governor Ann Richards?
Yeah, man. Well, that's the last time we had, a Democrat elected statewide. So I think the big differences between myself and my opponent just lie in actual experience. I obviously served in the state house. I know James, we served together. And then as relates to the federal level, I've spent the vast majority of my elected career on the federal level. And right now, a lot of people are asking questions. They're saying, how can they do this? Why can they do that? And I think that in this moment, because government is not normal, we need to know how someone is going to fight, not theoretically, but practically on the federal level. And so people understand how I am in this environment, and we know that our base right now is not necessarily happy. And so it's a bit of a gamble, because there's a lot of people that have elected to go to the federal level, but then they're like, y'all are not cutting it for this moment. And so I think that that's unique, in addition to the fact that I'm an attorney. And so while I know a lot of people don't necessarily like lawyers, but this particular role, it is so important, because every single justice that we have, they have to come through the U.S. Senate. And so as someone who's practiced both in state courts as well as federal courts, I know the questions that need to be asked. I know how to properly vet. And when you're talking about lifetime appointments, which they get, that's extremely helpful to have. Not to mention, I've already been there, so I've already filed bills, and so you don't have to worry about what I say I'm going to do. You can go back and look at my record and see how it is that I voted. It's not theoretical. It is very practical. And the final point is, we got to win. End of story. We got to win. And so I'm starting off with a candidate for the first time on our side in a very long time that has high name ID. That means that when we raise that money, we're not having to spend it on trying to introduce people to me. Instead, we can go ahead and start expanding the electorate, because the win has to come from getting to additional people. And I think that that's really the biggest selling point.
And then moving here locally, why'd you come here today, and why is flipping votes that especially went to Trump here in South Texas, especially the Hispanic community, so important to you, or James for that matter, taking this seat?
I think it's important that we engage in conversations. There's a lot of people that just feel like they're not seen. And so when I'm looking at how do we get voter participation up, well, you got to go meet people where they are. And so when you ignore certain areas, I think that it's important for people to know that this is my first weekend, my first time hitting the ground since I've officially been in this race in this year. And I decided to come to South Texas. That wasn't by accident. That was very intentional. You can't say that you want to represent people and then you fail to show up. So while I can't make it around every part of the state, it is important that at least, because I tell people all the time, we got a bunch of different states in this one big state, because we all have different personalities. And I want people to know that I care. I want to listen. I want to answer their questions. And so I think I also just want to hear their stories and hear their pain and let them know that I care. I understand your pain, whether you're a farmer or a rancher. I served on the agriculture committee. I understand the challenges. I understand the record number of bankruptcies that are being filed, whether it's because of the tariffs or whether it's because of issues as it relates of a lack of water access. Like, I understand these things, right? And I think that while a lot of people know my name and they may know the viral side of me, they don't know all of the substance of me. And I think that I want to make sure that we can break down some of the perceptions that may come with having such high name ID and things like that, and get people to understand that I am just as real as they come. And so I will come and meet you where you are. Don't look at me and say, well, she's from the big city, so she doesn't care about us. That ain't true. I've been fighting for people all over the state as a representative in Texas 30. And I think people are about to find out a lot of the work that I did on their behalf, even if they weren't in my district.
Wow, and I didn't expect that. I didn't expect the ag committee from
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, a lot of things people don't expect, but I worked very closely with the Texas Farm Bureau. I've we may release some pictures of me on some farm equipment and all kinds of things, because I have done these things, but those things don't go viral, right? Like, so people don't necessarily know, but we do ag really big here. We do everything bigger in Texas, right? And so from the cotton guys to the sugar guys, we have had these conversations, to the chicken guys, right? Like, obviously, we've got a few chicken plants, and we've got a situation with Tyson's right now, and a non-chicken plant that's looking to shut down. And so, like, it's important for people to understand the breadth of the work that I've done, and my knowledge, and my ability to help, and my desire to help. And I think that is another thing that will just become very clear when people are looking at the differences between myself and my opponent, is that it gets real deep, because I've just been kind of knee deep in federal stuff.
And then here in the coastal bend, Corpus Christi area, and across the state, there are a lot of well-paying oil and natural gas jobs. It's a big part of the state economy, as you well know, but obviously we have to take care of our planet. So how do you balance the economic welfare of the state that you want to represent with the welfare of our planet and our coastline, for instance, that is rising?
Yeah, very good question. So I actually started the Climate Caucus in the State House. So definitely a green girly. Most people don't realize that we do everything big, including all energy. So we are on wind, we are big on solar, as well as traditional oil and gas. And so while I don't take any oil and gas money, I have never closed my doors to talking to constituents. And so I actually have a great working relationship with a lot of those that are in the oil and gas industry, because how can I advocate for my constituents if I'm not engaging in conversation, okay? I have consistently pushed for us to get to a cleaner space faster. I will also tell you that a lot of those in the oil and gas industry, they understand the importance of moving forward. And so they are trying to, a lot of people are like, oh, it's oil and gas, and they just think that that's just where they want to stay, but they will become a dinosaur. I mean, because energy is global, all right? So you will become a dinosaur if you don't start to kind of move ahead. And the final point that I'll say on that is that I'm not the big threat to oil and gas that some may try to pretend I am. I will tell you that this current president is a bigger problem, because by what he's doing in Venezuela and deciding that he wants to then somehow go and get that oil, well, that again may put those in Texas in a bit of a bind as they are trying to sell their oil and gas. It's kind of like when he decided to go over to Argentina and help out ranchers, and then put us in a bind here at home. So I will tell you that I understand how the entirety of the ecosystem works as a business major who understands global trade, and I do want us to get to a better space, but it has to be a global move that we make. And I've engaged in these conversations globally. I've sat down with leaders in other countries, talked about what they could do to do their part. And I will tell you that sadly, the United States is not really leading in the transformation. Final point that I'll make is that when you think about, some of y'all may not be old enough to remember, but telephones. There was a time when it was just nothing but a landline, and you can go back before that and it was a telegraph, right? Like, so the thing is, things transform. And so you either stay with it or you lose out. And I think oil and gas is very well aware of the energy space, and a lot of them are making investments in trying to make sure that even what they're doing in its current form, that they can be a little cleaner with that as well.
Awesome. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it. And on behalf of South Texas, thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you. Hopefully you're going to run for office.
My older daughter.
Good. Okay, good.
Thank you for coming to South Texas, first of all. Now, you mentioned in the water question, we have huge water issues here. There's also the industry component that a lot of these jobs in said industry make 2 to 3 times the median average income here. So if you get to the Senate, how do you plan to balance the welfare of our planet with the greenhouse gas emissions you mentioned versus the economic welfare of our state?
And we can do both. You know, there's folks in our politics who say we have to choose between good paying energy jobs and protecting our natural resources. That's a false choice. We can have these industries of the future growing in our state, bringing good paying jobs to all of our communities. We can add to all of the great oil and gas jobs that we have across South Texas with new jobs in wind and solar and batteries and geothermal. That's how we keep Texas as an energy leader in the 21st century, just like we were in the 20th.
And why do you believe that you're the first potential Democrat, since Governor Ann Richards, who you mentioned, to potentially hold statewide office in Texas? Why are you that Democrat?
Well, you know, I have a history of flipping Trump seats. I won a seat in Williamson County, which was a deep red county. It was at a seat that no one thought was winnable. And I brought people together, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, to change the politics of our community. Now we're doing it at a statewide level. We're bringing people together across the political spectrum to end one-party rule in this state.
And this is something I covered when I was writing a little bit for the Statesman
Yeah.
in Austin,
Yeah.
A lot of our prisons in Texas, as you probably know, still do not have air conditioning.
Yeah.
And you mentioned criminal justice reform up here. Is there a federal solution to that, if you were to make it to the federal government?
Absolutely. I fought to make sure that we had basic air conditioning in all of our state correctional facilities, and the federal government needs to take action to protect the human rights of all inmates. Having a justice system doesn't mean we should have cruel and unusual punishment in this country. And so I absolutely think there's a federal role here.
Last thing.
Yeah.
Our farmers and ranchers down here, a lot
Yes.
of them are being hurt
Yes.
by the first trade war, the second trade war.
Yeah.
How would you plan to help out our farmers and ranchers here? As I believe we have the most in the country.
We need a U.S. Senator who's going to have the backs of Texas farmers and ranchers, who's not going to sell them out for an Argentina bailout, who's not going to pass crazy tariffs that hurt our industries. We need a senator who's going to have the backs of our producers here in our state.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
Keith Tomlinson at The Observer.
Yeah.
Can I ask your reaction to the protests inside the detention centre at Dili over the weekend?
Yeah.
And just your view in general of sort of having these, there's been a huge amount of attention on it, these detention centres for migrants across this state.
Well, I think we need more Texans stepping up to protest these abuses. And I'm so proud of the protesters who have already stepped up in a courageous way to protect our neighbors. That's what we're called to do as Texans.
You've seen the video on Saturday of the lawyer with the kids shouting over the wall at the weekend?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, well, possibly.
Yeah.
I know this election is not going to be won or lost on foreign policy, but just as a Brit, I'm just curious, what your view of Trump's threats towards Greenland over the last week, towards NATO, the America First policy in general, and the risk it poses to the transatlantic post-war order, basically.
Well, this is not America First. Sounds like it's Greenland and Venezuela first. We don't want Greenland, we want healthcare. We don't want Venezuela, we want lower costs at the grocery store. And the president ran on helping working people in this country. He seems far more interested in foreign conquests than helping America. And so I think we need to confront this new American imperialism that's seeking to colonize Venezuela and Greenland and bring some sanity back to our foreign policy.
Just finally, the question of your faith is such a sort of prominent issue in this campaign, and I just wonder, I'm sure you've been asked this before, if you risk or are concerned about becoming a victim of the way that precisely that sort of Christianity in particular has been sort of abused over the years in American politics. Every congressman has a Bible verse to hand.
Yeah.
And I just sort of wondered if how you change that perception of faith in politics overall.
Well, my concern is the members of Congress who are quoting scripture and then violating the teachings of Jesus every day. who are not feeding the hungry, who are not healing the sick, who are not welcoming the stranger. That's what I'm trying to call out. I'm trying to call out the religious hypocrisy that we see too often in our government. I think we need more legislators who are going to act like Jesus, whether they're Christians or not, whether they're religious or not. We need those kind of values in our political discourse again, and that's what I'm trying to fight for.
Looking forward to yet another debate, or what did you take away from that?
Well, I'm always for debating. I think in a democracy you want the people to have an opportunity to question their representatives, question their candidates for office. It's partly why I'm doing town halls all over the state, unfiltered questions where I hear directly from the people that I seek to represent.
Tonight's town hall, a lot of different questions. What struck you the most?
I think the turnout. I was not anticipating this many people to show up here in Corpus Christi on a cold evening, on a weekday, but the place was packed, and I think it shows the kind of energy that's building all over this state around our campaign. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
One question
Yes.
inspired by my British friend.
Yeah.
Do you support an NHS-style Medicare for all type of healthcare system?
I've laid out our healthcare plan, which would allow every American, every Texan to join Medicare if that's what they choose. But if they have insurance that they like through their employer or through their union, then they should be able to keep it.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for coming to South Texas.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate y'all.
We also reached out to the third candidate in this Democratic primary for U.S. Senate, businessman Ahmad Hassan. As of our deadline, we did not receive a response. In November, the Democratic nominee will face the winner of a heated Republican field, including incumbent John Cornyn, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, and Congressman Wesley Hunt. Those GOP candidates are campaigning on border security, reducing inflation, and expanding energy production, setting up to be what's one of the most closely watched Senate contests in the country. I'm Ryan Hopper. Thanks for watching.